And thank you. Thank you very much. Let me first admit that I have not been able to update my talk because of several reasons. So what you see is updated only up to 2019 and not beyond that. So I have not captured the COVID-19 scenario here. So you will find my talk muted. Although during discussion I may bring that, but data-wise you may not see that here. This talk I used to give as a joint lecture to environment and health both. You know, and that's why I'm happy that environment science students are also here. In 1994, WHO published a report called Our Planet, Our Health. And that report, I think, will be available in your library. It is available in our library also. And after reading that, I thought that that is not only a report, but actually at Health Sciences, we used to run a course on environmental health. And we used to use that report as a book for that course. So it all started from there. Till that time, environment and health was not really connected very well. And discussion was always happening that although despite all, and this is post-Rio I'm talking about. So although so many efforts are going in, but the people participation in environmental issues was not coming up to the mark. Especially, there were committed voluntary organizations and passionate people who were dedicated for the cause. But the participation coming from community was not that enthusiastic. And so discussions were happening why it is happening so. And then the conclusion was, we are talking to people in a language which they may not directly understand. For example, we talk to them about global warming. We talk to them, and this, remember, not now, because now intensity of global warming is much more known. I'm talking about 20 years back. Or we are telling them, no, you protect environment because tigers in the forest are in danger. Or some species of fish in some marine ecosystem are in danger. Biodiversity is at threat. So all these issues are important issues. But a common person, that person is saying, so what? How am I concerned? If tigers are getting less, fine, they may not kill people more. Or if cobras are getting extinct, or if any other species, I am not concerned about it. So when the reasons were discussed, one of the strong reasons came that connecting environment protection to their health, and not only their health, but health of generations. The moment you start talking in these terms, probably there, and that's how this Our Planet, Our Health report came in. And since then, environmental health emerged as a new subject. Otherwise, earlier there used to be occupational health as a subject. But environmental health typically was not there. So probably our university was the first wherein environmental health as such was introduced. And since then, I am following up this. Let me also admit that this is not my research interest. So I'm not doing any research in environmental health, but this is my passion. And therefore, my research is an entirely different direction. So that I'm not going to speak. I have given some glimpses to that to health sciences students. But for this class, I'm not going to bring it in. This is the talk designed on the theme environmental pathways to health. And essentially, we will look at environment as one of the determinants of health. For health sciences students, determinant of health is a known term. If you look at this, all of you have seen this, so I need not explain about it. But every student, whether environment student or health sciences student, must know this figure very well. If you want to survive when you go out, you must know this figure very well. These are some of the infographics. That's what they call it as. These infographics, you'll find in either WHO or UNEP websites. So I'm not again going to describe them in detail, but just wanted to show you that these infographics, in a very nice and illustrative manner, tell you what is happening. For example, who is at risk of climate change? You will find that they're telling everyone everywhere. Why? Or whether you live in wherever you are living, rural, urban, big city, small city, everybody is affected. Everybody is affected. Nobody is insulated. Climate change threatens your health. 250,000 additional deaths per year. 250,000 additional deaths, remember. How the environment impacts our health. We are going to see some of that during the lecture, but you will find that these are the reasons, not only which is known, air pollution or climate change, but or occupational risk, radiation, all these are the reasons how environment impacts health and how we can improve our environment to improve our health. These are various ways and means which we can do to improve our health, including simple things like safe drinking water. And this point will be coming up during my talk a little later. Globally, 1 in 8 deaths, 1 in 8 deaths. And this will tell you the seriousness of what this subject is. 1 in 8 deaths are linked to air pollution, some way or other. And this is all UN data. So this is not a NGO presentation. Because many times there is a fashion to criticize NGOs. NGOs are also very passionate. Sometimes they exaggerate, but they mean well. And so questions are raised about what they are telling. But by and large, I must tell you that without NGOs interventions, what we see today, we might not have seen. Worldwide death and disease, if you see 25% deaths, actually, we are talking about deaths. 25% of deaths are due to environmental factors. And additional 25 are related to environment. May not be directly, but related to it. So almost 50% of the deaths caused today are linked to environment some way or other. I'll take you to United States Congress in 1975. And why US Congress? Because all of us are being told that US is one of the best countries to follow, which it is not, by the way. It is not best country to follow for health. It is not best country to follow for environment. It is not best country to follow lifestyle. It is not best country to follow nutrition. But still we are following it. Still we are following. And that's why I've taken example from the US Congress. Why I've taken example from US Congress is this is not something discussion happening in some canteen or on roadside. The statement what you read here was stated by no less than Surgeon General of United States. So Surgeon General is Chief of United States as far as health is concerned, highest authority. And where he is making this statement? In the United States Congress, the highest legislative body of that country. So obviously he cannot make a loose statement, unless this statement is backed completely by science and evidence. He cannot make that kind of a statement. Otherwise, what he made a statement in 1975 in US Congress, the time has come to close book on infectious disease. What a daring statement. Because that time the science was on emerge so high. One after the other, new antibiotics were coming, new treatments were coming, new surgeries were coming. And mostly infectious diseases were seen that they are under control. 1975. So look at the hubris. This is the scientific hubris. This is something which we also call it an overconfidence. And that even exists today. If you look at that country, that exists there even today. So, W.S. Stewart statement in 75, what happened after that? Right that year, when the book was ready to be closed, 1975 witnessed Lyme's disease in US, which exists even today. 77 hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, 78 Legionnaires' disease, 78 again toxic shock syndrome. This we may know, these terms you may not have heard, but AIDS, infectious diseases, closing down the book. Instead of closing down the book grew multiple sizes. Ebola, 2000 plus swine flu, bird flu, Zika, and COVID-19, big thing. So whatever we may hear, wherever we may hear, we need not trust it blindly, because it may be true at that point of time. Closing down the book might have got support at that time, because people were thinking that now we are discovering newer and newer drugs, so we don't have to worry about, forget about these infections. We can conquer them. Nature doesn't work that way. In 2022, if you look at today, all of us are witnessing infectious diseases still remain a leading cause of death in the world, killing more people than heart disease and cancer. 2019, third largest cause of death in the US was COVID-19. Only one infectious disease was third largest cause of death. Worldwide, if you look at, we have been able to really control some of the infectious diseases. We must admit, because of several reasons. Vaccines came in very powerfully. And so diseases like smallpox came down, practically extinct also. Polio, measles, again, there is a question mark if you see. So while we are saying they're coming down, we are not sure whether they are coming down. For example, tuberculosis has shifted from here to here. But tuberculosis is not coming down. Tuberculosis is again recent. But some of the diseases have come down definitely because of the improved hygiene, because of vaccination and kind of thing. But this list is increasing. Infectious diseases list is increasing, and this includes emerging and re-emerging diseases, in addition to new diseases like COVID-19. So there are emerging diseases, re-emerging diseases, and unknown new diseases coming up. So this is really causing a major, and on top of it, at the end here, this problem is really becoming even worse, antimicrobial resistance. So this is the data, this keeps on changing. So don't take these figures as straight. These figures keep on changing. But just to give you some idea about how many deaths are happening because of infectious diseases, 3 million deaths from diarrhea, 4 million deaths from acute respiratory infection, 3 million deaths from malaria. These are the emerging infectious diseases, newly identified, previously unknown infection agents. They cause a major public health problem today. And COVID-19 is just one example we have seen. If you see re-emerging infections, infectious agents have been known for some time. It's not that they may be new. But they were so low that they were not considered as public health problems. But they don't remain in that state for a longer time, because the environmental changes happen. And that's why the talk is named as environmental pathways to. Why? So environmental pathways can decide, how you build those pathways will decide whether you are going on a healthy track or on the disease track or ill health track. So the evolution of pathogenic infectious agents, they includes microbial adaptation and change. So earlier there used to be a common explanation: if something new comes in, some genetic modifications have happened, and therefore now this particular bug is resistant. Earlier it was not. The development of resistance to drug and resistance to of vectors and pesticides also, because we are in One Health. One Health is a concept. I don't know how many of you have heard. I'm not going to discuss about One Health, but One Health deserves a separate lecture as such. But it is more, the definition of One Health is expanding now. Earlier definition was limited to only zoonotic conditions, but now One Health also means much broader uh, definition, including the integrative components of which are the factors which contribute to this emergence of disease or re-emergence also. Climate and changing ecosystem, economic development, and how you use land, that also plays an important role. Land use, especially urbanization and deforestation. Technology and industry, food processing industry, or how you handle the food. International travel and commerce. We are going to take some examples about these. Then sudden breakdown of the system, such as now what is happening in Ukraine, war. That also, unrest, overcrowding, and also deterioration in surveillance systems. If you don't keep a continuous surveillance, you may find emergence of certain diseases. 2/3 emerging infections actually originate from animals, whether they are wild or domestic. And this is about original One Health concept which has come from zoonotic disease. For example, emerging influenza infections in human associated with wild geese, chickens, and pigs. The animal displacement in search for food after deforestation. This is a classical example of Lassa fever, and also Lyme's disease. Lyme's disease example I'm going to take little later. Humans themselves penetrate or modify unpopulated regions, come closer to animal reservoirs. This also will be taking one example about this. So I'm just raising few points here. If not all, some examples I'm going to tell you that how it actually happens. Just one, for example, if you talk about climate and environmental change, deforestation forces animals into closer human contact. Lyme's disease is a classic example of it. Climate conditions like El Nino can trigger natural disasters, including tsunamis and others, and related outbreaks of infectious diseases followed by that are malaria, cholera. After those disasters happen, floods also are part of that. Spread of malaria, dengue, leishmaniasis, and filariasis are because of global warming. Because global warming, rising temperatures itself can give rise to growth of a particular vectors or particular animal species. These are also important reasons for environmental pathways to health: poverty, neglect, and weakening of health infrastructure. It is observed that they are the poor who are most affected in most of the cases. Whenever such disasters come, it is the poor who are most affected. And poverty, malnutrition, coupled with malnutrition in severe infection, this is a actually vicious cycle, because poverty and malnutrition together will have impact on your own immune system, and so opportunistic infections can come in. This, what I'm telling you, actually is a matter of about 4 or 5 lectures, so I'm not explaining everything in a concise manner today. It's just to give you some orientation to what is happening. So I'm not going to discuss all the slides in details. Okay, so antimicrobial resistance. Also, I'm going to take one example of antimicrobial resistance. Probably. Now, let's take one by one example. The first example is of tuberculosis. At one point of time, we were hoping that tuberculosis is completely under control because we have excellent anti-tubercular drugs, and at that time, it was also seemingly possible control tuberculosis. But again, taking US example, in the US, the incidence of TB increased 18% with 26,000 plus cases reported in 1992. So when the tuberculosis was considered to be under eradication, US itself, and earlier, if you remember, disease like tuberculosis was tagged as diseases of poor, diseases of third world countries, all these labels were there for tuberculosis. But look at this, in the US itself, the richest country, New York City, which is capital, financial capital, not the country capital, but financial capital, 150% increase in tuberculosis cases. In Europe, Italy reported 28%, Switzerland experienced 33% between just 86 to 1990, these years. In 1991, 8 million new tuberculosis cases were reported worldwide, and one-third of the world population is now estimated to be carrying this infection. Most of us carry this, but we don't show because we have resistance. So when our immunity becomes compromised, the opportunistic tuberculosis infections are showing. Even today, people face this. Another case is of diphtheria. Diphtheria was again one of these because of vaccination and because of other preventive measures. Diphtheria was on the verge of controlled well, but then diphtheria also has re-emerged as a major killer in adults in former Soviet Union. Another example is of plague. There is a question mark. What happened during the plague in Surat? Those case studies you may have read. We have not been able to still confirm what was it. So there is a question mark there. Malaria, cholera, dengue also have resurged. And WHO has warned pandemic spread of dengue, which is becoming more severe. If you see, the severity of dengue is increasing. The dengue 10 years ago and dengue today, there is a huge difference. The morbidity coming during and after dengue is dengue hemorrhagic fever and dengue shock syndrome are skyrocketing. Average 29,000 per year to 270,000 per year new cases have been reported. Next example is of yellow fever. Number of cases in Africa alone have increased from few hundred in a year, which were in late 1940s. So it was on the verge of extinction, almost going. Yellow fever is going. Now 200,000 per year is there. So why this is happening? The emergence of, if you look at the world map, you will see that major areas all over the world are now showing this. It shows emergence of dengue and dengue hemorrhagic fever as well. So what is happening? This question comes to our mind. Why this is happening? Because virtually all pathogens regarded as new previously existed in nature. They were in nature somewhere, including your COVID-19 was also sitting happily with some bats there probably. They had no pathway to reach us at that time. But it's not something has come from sky to us. There are theories that some microbes also may travel. But COVID-19 did not travel that way. COVID-19 was that virus was there. So virtually all pathogens The emergence as new agents of disease has gradually resulted not from pathogens changing. So COVID-19, coronavirus was there. It's not because of that. It is because not just pathogen, it has not changed, but the social conditions, environmental conditions or environmental changes have enabled those pathogens to reach to us. Like in case of corona, somewhat we don't, that is also a mystery even today, which is unfortunate, with so much of advancement in information science, we still don't know the origin of this most deadliest disease which we have seen. We don't know. And this statement also, all pathogens regarded new previously existed. Those who have really studied microbiology or even zoology, they would know that not that in Burgess manual, not that very few will be infectious, very few will be pathogens, not all, very few are pathogens. But this relationship decides what is going to happen. Human is at the center. Environment has influence, and it can influence due to climate change, pollution, or exploitation of environmental resources. It could be mega cities, migration, population growth. All this, can have impact. Vector proliferation and vector resistance related to vectors. This side are animals, and in between the zoonosis pathways are created because of various human activities. It could be urbanization, it could be intensive farming, it could be flood, it could be your changing food habits or whatever. But the interrelationship of human beings with environment, with animals, with vectors decides the fate of these infectious diseases. So this is health sciences students know, but for environmental science, health is determined by 4 major determinants. And they are, first one is obviously environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and heredity. These are like 4 pillars of a building. If any one pillar becomes weak, you need a support, to save that building. And this support is actually medical care. But today we are thinking that medical care is the main thing, and we have started believing that by taking medicines we will get health, which is not true. If you want health, you have to ensure that these 4 determinants are intact. So we are talking only about this in this class, environment as determinant of health. This definition of health also, health sciences students, I have talked about it, but again, just to refresh and expand it more for environmental science students, this is a WHO definition of health. They talk about physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just absence of disease of deformity. That's what the health they mean. But we don't know what this well-being is. Well-being cannot be measured. Can you measure well-being? Can we say? It's very difficult to measure. There could be some instruments for quality of life, but well-being term still is vague. But we can measure whether presence or absence of disease, because we have pathology reports and various measures of disease or deformity also we can measure. So the whole health, when we talk about, our focus is going on disease because we are able to measure disease, we are able to see disease. We don't know what is well-being, so our focus is not on that. Health versus disease, I must tell you that although we may have been forcefully, unknowingly made to believe that doctors are there to cure all the diseases, doctors have not controlled cholera. Doctors have not controlled typhoid. They have not. They may have cured some typhoid and cholera cases, but control of these diseases was because in the West, nutritious food, safe drinking water, and pasteurized milk, simple technique like these, they were responsible for controlling cholera and typhoid, not antibiotics. Immunization and not antibiotics wiped off smallpox or controlled diphtheria, tetanus, and polio. So in our mind, we should remove this misconception that medicines can do everything in wonder. Medicine is just one support system when you lose the core. So we need to really look at different layers of health: environmental layer, social layer, commercial layer, the economic layer, political layer. All these are important. When we talk about environmental health, all these layers are important, not just environment, because there will be connections between social, economic, and political, because the decision making is happening at the political level. So environmental change and human health, if you see, it still remains a major cause of ill health all around the world. Now, this is some kind of a relationship, contagion. Actually, earlier I used to also show 2 movies to our students as a part of learning. Now I don't get that time, but this movie, that time we used to actually have a contagion. How many of you seen that? Very good. It's a fantastic movie, Contagion, that tells us how. So, human activities, environmental changes, and socio-economic conditions actually have impact on contagion. And in that movie, they have shown it very nicely. And this contagion, because of these changes, can have access to new hosts. Again, in that movie, they have shown how it has access, and this can lead to resurgence. And if we used to give all the reasoning based on the genetic modification earlier, which may be true, but that's not the real cause. The real cause is socio-economic changes which are happening, which are compelling that changes to happen. This is another example. Marburg and yellow fever viruses originally were infections only in monkeys. They were not bothering you at all as human beings. They were not bothering you. Or Rift Valley fever was inherited infection of mosquitoes. So it was there in mosquitoes as their natural. Like in our body, we have several microorganisms. By the way, I'm sure you know that our cells in our body are in minority. Do you know this? I'll repeat. Our cells in our body are in minority. And in great minority. So our cells in our body contribute only to hardly 10% of the total cell population in our body. 90% is not human. 90% cell count I am talking about. All those cells are coming from microbiome. They could be viruses, they could be bacteria. So imagine if you only focus on human cells and your treatments on human body, your treatments will not be sufficient. And that's why when Ayurveda talks about treatment, they don't talk about only this. They consider the whole. You will not be able to really manage many diseases if you focus on that. And therefore, microbiome has emerged as a major research area now. All these pathogens, whether Marburg, yellow fever, Rift Valley, or hantavirus, were transferred to human beings because of human activity that created new pathways for them to come to you. And we'll see some examples here. Best example is oropouch fever. This is a classic investigation, epidemiological investigation. Study of epidemiology also is like Sherlock Holmes. So it is like investigation, detective investigation. So why happened? What happened? This is a study. And not every time you may be able to get success. Like in COVID-19, we still have not been able to get success. There may be different theories, but still there is no consensus on exactly how that disease have come. But here is the story of oropouch fever. Oropouch fever, fortunately, is a non-fatal disease. So which causes severe headache, muscle pain, occasionally meningitis. But it is non-fatal. If Oropouche fever would have been a fatal disease, the demography of our world would have been completely different. Fortunately, it was not. What happened? The first outbreak of Oropouche fever was followed by the building of a highway in 1950s. This happened in Brazil. The highway construction was going on from the coastal highway was going on in the capital, connecting the capital. And soon after the construction of highway, researchers isolated Oropouche fever in the blood of highway workers. So imagine, this is now a situation. Imagine that ecosystem where there is a big forest, very good rainforest, Amazon forest, and everybody is living there happily and harmoniously without any problem. Suddenly, huge machines are coming, trees are getting cut, the whole ecosystem is getting disturbed, and a road is formed midway to the big forest. So you can imagine the destruction or changes in the environment there, what is happening. So this, after investigation, this is what led to. This is what I told you, the detective work, epidemiological detective work. So look at this side. Deforestation was happening because highway you have to do, you have to cut trees, and we see that around us everywhere. Is those who have seen when you may be in schools or even kids, But if you remember, what was Katraj Dev Road bypass road? There was nothing, absolutely nothing. Before that, there was a very good green patch, maybe some agricultural lands, a beautiful river going in between. And after that road came in, now you see, you don't know where was that, all that ecosystem, complete change in ecosystem. Same thing happened here, deforestation, because they have to clear, they have to cut trees. And now our nature, human nature is so greedy. The moment we see that land is coming up, the land grab, I think, is very tempting. So people realize that, oh, this land now, instead of clearing these 100 acres, why restrict to that? Let's get more land. Why? Because they found that that land was so fertile. Obviously, it's a forest land, it will be fertile. They realized that cocoa plantation can happen here very well. In our case, you may see sugarcane plantations. In our case, cocoa was there, in case sugarcane. Environmental hazards, same. Now at least there is some relief. Otherwise, 20 years ago, those who may remember, if you pass through your village, you will recognize that sugar factories in nearby, because they used to throw all the in lagoons. That was the technology at that time. Now there is a zero carbon, and most of the factories are now using it for creating alcohol. But cocoa plantation, they found that this land is very good for cocoa plantation. So thousands of acres of that land alongside highway, cocoa plantation started. Now what was happening, cocoa plantation is fine, but after you remove cocoa seeds, what to do with those hulls? Like after you crush the sugar cane, what to do with the bagasse, and same thing, what to do with this? So best way is to throw out of our site. Our cleaning idea is clean our house and throw garbage somewhere else. So like that same thing happened there. So they just discarded this cocoa hulls in heaps. And those heaps were around around highways. So west was. Remember these small little midgets, insects, biting insects. They were earlier living happily in that forest. They may be biting some deers or some other animals. And those deers also were happy with their bites. Nothing was happening to them. So they were all living in symbiosis. There was no problem. But suddenly these insects found that these cocoa hulls are excellent places to breed because the moist, heap, dark, ultimately survival of the fittest, That's the law of jungle, and this is right happening in jungle only. So these insects started finding new hosts, and they found us because highway workers were there ready. And they found that instead of biting to those deers or tigers or whatever, with that thick skin and hair, it was very difficult for them to bite, probably. And they found a very nice animal, to bite. Skin is open, everything is. So they were very happy. So they started biting human beings. Yeah. So these culicoids or these insects, they had oropouche fever as their natural flora. No, so it was sitting there as a natural flora. Now, while this was happening, here what was happening on the other side? Because of highway construction, highway workers were there. Because of our greed, plantation was happening, but not only plantation, alongside the highway settlements come. Katraj Dev Road bypass today, the whole thing has full of settlements, because we want to live very near to the road. We don't want to even park our vehicle inside. We want to park our vehicle just in front of the shop and go inside and buy it, So this is what is our mentality. So immediately settlements alongside highway, big buildings and everything came in. And this exposed human being. And there is a term called vulnerable human being. Vulnerability. This is a term in epidemiology, vulnerable. Nothing will happen if we are not vulnerable. But these changes made us vulnerable there. Because the ready to attack insects were there in growing numbers and we were vulnerable, available there. So they started biting and they found human as a new host. Clear case of environmental pathway. How otherwise we have nothing to do with them. They are happily living there naturally. We created a pathway to reach to us, and therefore we got this oropouche fever. And as I said, fortunately, it is not a fatal disease. Otherwise, you could imagine if this would have been a fatal disease, what could happen. So what are the lessons here? The first lesson is neither a pathogen nor their vectors are static entities. Remember this. In nature, we are not dealing with static entities. Nor is their relationship. The relationship is also not static. Also, most bacteria are not pathogens. That's what I told you. If you look at Burgess manual, you'll find that most bacteria are not pathogens. Most arthropods are not disease vectors. Those who have studied zoology, you know that most arthropods are not disease vectors. Very few are disease vectors, and most mammals are not sources of human diseases. Very few mammals are sources of diseases, like maybe bat or rat. So this is the disease dialectic. Why this happens? Because pathogen is confronted with conflicting demand. A pathogen cannot produce in disease unless we fulfill some conditions. Which are these conditions? First condition is nourishment to develop and reproduce. Pathogen must have nourishment. Without nourishment, pathogen cannot multiply. Second condition is pathogen must get avoided by killed by body's defense. So it should survive to your body's defense. And third, very important, otherwise without this condition, pathogens may infect you, but they will die. And the end will be with you. So there will be no spread. They must find a satisfactory exit to go to another host. Without that, disease spread is not possible. If they are not able, pathogen is not able to find exit and go to another host, next human being will not get infected, right? So because pathogens are able to get exit and find another host, disease spreads. So these three conditions are extremely important. This is the disease dialectic. And these three conditions depend on not only genetics or mutations or adoptions. This is because of the social, economical, age and gender, personal habits, sexual practices. Like in case of AIDS, it was sexual practices. So in cases, different diseases, different conditions will be found. Nutrition, alcohol, drugs, all these are the reasons which influence these three important conditions. Again, remember, this is dialectic. Three important conditions. First, pathogen must get nourishment to develop and reproduce. Second, they avoid by getting killed by body's defense mechanism, and find satisfactory exit. Any one of that, if you are able to control, you are able to control. But many times, all three are compromised. All three are compromised. Because on one side, your immunity is under threat. On the other side, the nourishment to pathogen is provided because of availability and environmental conditions. In case of oropouche fever, we saw that how they get compromised. SARS at that time in 2003, before that people may be remembering that flu in 100 years ago, but SARS, for the first time we witnessed that how rapidly the infection can spread. It was the first emerging infectious disease of the 21st century. It spread so rapidly. A total 30 countries in 7 to 8 months. Just 7 to 8 months, 30 countries it spread. So these are some of the lessons which were learned from SARS. Infectious diseases, one country is threat to all. And this we again witnessed during COVID very, very powerfully. In fact, SARS was just a signal to us, but we did not take that signal at that time. Nature always gives us signal, but we don't take it. And at the end of my talk, I'm going to talk about, and I don't know how many of you have read the report link. Aarti madam may have sent it to you. Late lessons from early warnings. Aarti, which was sent to them? Yeah. Late lessons from for early warning. Again, this we used to use that as a textbook for our course of health and environment. I have not seen such a studied report. Eye opener. If you read that report, you would probably go sleepless nights. SARS created tremendous negative impact, and as I told you, I have not updated it. So if I update this for COVID-19, this slide will be even much more disturbing. Okay. High-level commitment is crucial for rapid containment, and WHO played a critical role in catalyzing international cooperation support. Again, we saw that during COVID-19 also, but WHO's role in COVID-19 also was discussed, debated, and was controversial. And global partnerships and ability to rapidly share data and information and experiences, help in enhancing our preparedness and the responses. This is avian flu. Again, I will skip this. This is swine flu. This you can just see. March 18, outbreak reported in Mexico. 15th, CDC identifies H1N1 swine flu. April 25th, WHO declared public health emergency. April 27, pandemic alert, raised to phase 4. And 29th April, raised to phase 5. See how rapidly in the world, how interconnected today's world is. Look at this spread and numbers all over the world. Pandemic, why we call it as pandemic, this slide will tell you. This is another example. So first example I gave you of the forest ecosystem connecting the urban ecosystem. Now this is from marine ecosystem. This example is from marine ecosystem. And this example is of cholera 0139 strain, which is resistant to all antibiotics today. So what happened? Infrastructure, development, pollution, poverty, all put together, they are able to create new niche for diseases. Where it happened? Sewage and fertilizers in marine ecosystem. Because it is best way to dispose of this is not really treat sewage, but just throw it in river, throw it in sea. That's what we see today. If you look at Pune River is all sewage. Means one of the champions of environment with whom we have worked very closely, and because of whom actually you see whatever Pune hills are saved are because of that person's effort. I would like to pay my respect to him, friend. You know, do you know who is no more? Just recently we lost him. Pune people, do you remember him? One who worked and dedicated for the cause of environment. Sujit Patwardhan, if you don't know him, you have no business to stay in Pune, actually. Or you have no business to study environment. I can tell you that. Sujit Patwardhan, we lost him, I think, three months ago. Parisar was the NGO he was running up. And he is the person responsible for saving Pune. The tree at the gate, you see that tree today because of Sujit. We, along with environmental science student at that time in 1994 time, all of us were there standing, protecting that tree. And that's why that tree is there today. Otherwise, we were all ready to get chopped off. Like many other trees have already gone. So sewage fertilizers in marine ecosystem, what happens if you throw, and once Sujit had said this in open meeting, when the Mutha River development plan came in. And that plan, he said that it's so disastrous because you are just converting a natural river into a sewage canal. So he suggested corporation, if you want to channelize river, then please put a slab on the entire river so that it becomes a sewage pipeline, which it is today also, but it's an open pipeline. So this loss of wetland, climatic change, over-harvesting, again, over-harvesting of fish is also one of the main reason why the changes are happening. Earlier, some fishermen were going in their own small boats. Now trawlers are going. The mechanical fishing is happening. So there is over-harvesting, high surface temperature. All this put together, remember that marine ecosystem, that marine ecosystem now is rich with all the nutrition, because sewage may be waste, our waste, but it is nutrition for somebody else. Temperature are rising, creating more conducive environment. So what happened is the whole marine ecosystem gave rise to massive growth of algae. So huge algal blooms were there in that ecosystem. And not just blooms, algal blooms, but within that algal blooms were trapped E. coli because it was all sewage. It was all sewage water. E. coli is one of the measuring parameter of quality of water, because it is directly coming from pieces. So, massive algal growth happened, and this poor Vibrio cholerae strain was trapped in it. Now that strain also has to survive, and in the new ecosystem it has to survive. It might not have faced such a saline environment. It might not have faced such a closed net of algae, all that, all new. So it got mutated. To survive, got mutated and became resistant. Today, this strain 0139 resistant to all antibiotics. So if you get that disease and if you don't have enough immunity, you are gone. Nobody can save you because there are no medicines available. It's resistant to all known. This is another example. You see what it spread and how it spread. That also is very interesting. It all happened from Chinese Mediterranean Sea because it started from Chinese Mediterranean Sea because in China all this waste was going there in a huge number. So these algal blooms started growing near Chinese Mediterranean Sea. But in nature or in the interconnected world, nothing is stationary. We saw in the previous slide. Everything is dynamic and it has relationship. So the fish which are there around, they are not going to differentiate now. They want to eat algae. When they eat algae, they are going to eat this new strain also. They cannot selectively decide not to eat this, So they are going to eat this. Now, when fishermen are over harvesting, this fish is going to be caught and we are going to eat it someday or other. So when we eat that fish, even by accident, that fish is not well cooked. There is entry of, and one entry, that pathogen has ability to exist and reproduce. Not only that, otherwise that would have been limited only to China. But what happened? Those fish are not going to stay there. Like migrating birds, fish also migrate. So those fish started coming from Mediterranean Sea and all the way went here to the other end of the world. And the outbreak happened. Now this red, whatever you see, in all these regions, this has been spread, which once started only at one small portion at Chinese Mediterranean Sea because of the environmental destruction leading to the algal bloom and mutation of this E. coli. So again, the lesson is disease we should not take in isolation. The social, ecological, epidemiological, and evolutionary context in which it spread is important. Degree of contact is very important. Host, whether you will get infected or not will depend on degree of contact. For example, if you are in mosquito prone area, so it will all depend, it's a chance game. Maybe one mosquito carrying that infection bites you and you get. But if you are not exposed, if you are well protected, mosquito is not able to bite you, So it depends on degree of contact. The reservoir, where are they? The pathogen, what kind of pathogen it is, All that, the relationship with host will decide the prevalence of infection. And prevalence of infection will in turn will be guided by immunity, nutrition, and genetic mode. These three factors will decide finally whether you may get infected, but whether you will get disease or not will be decided by these factors. And again, this term is coming because it's a technical term. Spread of pathogens require vulnerable human beings. So if we become vulnerable, then only you are able to get that. So this is another example, West Nile virus, WNY, how it spread in North America, Canada, Latin America, Caribbean. I'm not going to explain all the examples. So developing countries have severe problems. We are still considered as developing country because of degraded local environments on one side, and already we have a burden of infectious. We are typically facing double burden of disease. This term health sciences students have heard. Environmental science students, double burden of diseases. We are carrying our existing burden of communicable diseases, tuberculosis, malaria, all this dengue. These are all communicable diseases we already are carrying. In addition, because of changes in lifestyle and nutrition, we have imported now Western diseases also, lifestyle diseases, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cancer. So we are having both communicable and non-communicable diseases. And actually now it is triple burden of disease. The third burden is also coming because of the changing lifestyle, accidents, this, that, all these are coming as third burden of disease. So rapidly developing country like India, now we are rapidly developing country, are in double jeopardy, traditional threats as well as emerging risks. And The highest environmental threat to health are in Africa and some parts of Africa. The red part, what you see, they have the highest threats on this. India is in orange zone, but I think India is also in red zone, although they may not have shown this, but we are moving rapidly towards that zone. Developed countries also have problems because of the industrial pollution, which now they are trying to control, and emerging diseases. And tuberculosis is re-emerging, Lyme's disease, foodborne illnesses. Changing ecosystem. Now, this is another example I'll give you of urban forest interaction ecosystem. This is an example of Lyme's disease. This actually happened in the US. Lyme's disease is also not a fatal disease. It is a skin rash, meningitis, severe rheumatoid arthritis-like condition may be developed. But how it came in is little interesting. 18th century, deforestation for agricultural land happened actually in US. And because of deforestation and agriculture activity, the forest predators and deers and their predators were driven off. No, because there were no forests, they had to go out, go away from your habitat. What happened in 19th century? They realized we have made a mistake by clearing this forest. So huge forest drive was there in US, huge forest drive. Even today, if you go to US, you will not find forests like us, which are full with biodiversity. Monocultural forests, you will see that typical, because they have planted those trees later, huge plantation. So what happened? Because now there is a good tree cover, plantation, everything is happening. Deers found that, oh, we can go back, we have no problem. We can go back. And we are not really afraid of deer. So even if they come, we may do some hunting, but that is for fun, so we welcome them, come. So deers returned, but their predators did not return. So the natural control and the natural balance between the prey and predator was lost there. And so huge population of deer, even today, if you go to many cities, actually outskirts of cities in US, you will find that deers actually come to your backyard. They actually come to your backyard. So deers came, deers returned, but not their predators. And deer tick, there is a tick on deer. This tick used to have Lyme disease infection as a natural, but then this tick close to you when deer is coming, this tick also found you as a better host. So that tick from deer started biting you, and this Lyme disease was reported in the US. Today, all 50 states are reported with Lyme disease. So intensification of agriculture, industrialization, rising energy use, all this is impacting on our health. Intensification of agriculture itself is a major cause of cancer because overuse of chemicals, pesticides. This is hormone disruptors. These are so not only cancer, but several metabolic diseases are also linked. $5 million pesticide poisoning every year. Direct effects include our immunity also is compromised. Industrialization. This is another example I'll give about transport. How transport and trade. And this is example of Aedes aegypti. Aedes aegypti was in Africa in some pockets, living there happily. It came to America through slave trade. At that time, during that time, slave trade used to happen from Africa to this time. Smallpox did not become pandemic. Why, because at that time, air travel was not there. Rapid transport was not there. So by the time infected person arrives in different continent, there are only two possibilities. One possibility is that person will die of infection. Or second possibility is that person will develop immunity against that. So any case, by the time that person arrives, the chance of spread of this disease is not. But today, within 24 hours or within even half a day, you can cross a continent. So that's why the SARS and these infections spread rapidly because of the transportation. All malaria cases in 1991 in the US were contracted overseas. ATM, not your machine, money machine, but the Asian tiger mosquito, ATM, is spread through rubber tires. Rubber tires, rubber tires are a very good place for breeding mosquitoes. Excellent place. Dark, inside, water can remain. They require just small little water. Temperature is also good. So this easily can breed there. So they actually spread through rubber tire trade from one continent to other, from Asian countries to other. Now even in US, 18 states in US have reported Asian tiger mosquito. It's also in Brazil and Africa. It is becoming pandemic. This is what WHO has actually announced mosquito as #1 enemy. And it is true that globally poor is the most affected because inadequate water, sanitation, dirty fuels, industrial accidents, lead exposure, tuberculosis, asthma. First is poor, those who are affected. So these are some of the environmental interventions which are recommended. Sustainable transport is one example, but I will skip that, because transport plays a very important role in urban ecosystem. So I have talked about many ecosystems. This is the last example of urban ecosystem. Now we are actually witnessing this in Pune. Coming to Pune University also has become so terrible because of this all kind of work which is happening around us. And we hope that after everything is complete, we will be in better shape. That's what is our hope. But these hopes never come true. Earlier also we hoped many times that it happen, because by the time it all completes, we move to next phase where new problems emerge. So actually strengthening public transport system is the best way to tackle urban. And Pune city is the best example wherein public transport was systematically killed, compelling people to use individual vehicles. We don't want individual vehicles to be used. If you have a very good transport from your home, who wants to sit in that car for 1 hour and get that agony on traffic? We can easily sit in a bus and come if we get a bus in time. But Pune bus system was completely destroyed. And that was because of the industrial interests. And we started taking pride that Pune is a two-wheeler, earlier bicycle city, which was very good. It became two-wheeler motorcycle city. And it is not something to be taking pride. They say that we will become developed country when rich people will start traveling in public transport and not the other way. So this is we are completely going on the wrong track as far as urbanization is concerned. And this metro system, metro as a dream, it looks very great. But whether it is sustainable for city like excepting maybe Mumbai, to some extent Kolkata, our cities are not meant for metro. Instead of that, BRT would have been a great thing for us. Because imagine if you implement BRT rightly, what is metro otherwise? It is also BRT. Only thing, instead of bus, you are putting a metro train, which somebody else wants to sell it to you at a huge cost. And there has been a calculation actually that 10% of the cost which metro will require, 10% of the cost, if you invest in bus transport, then you will be able to give free transportation to entire Pune. Free. But we don't want that. We want 90% spend more, so that those who want to take out of that, whatever they want to take out, are able to do that. So this is what is happening. So integrated city mobility, I don't want to play that. By the way, this all data which I am not presenting is taken from my brother who runs this Purple Travel. So he is championing and he tried his best to actually push the bus service as a sustainable transport mode, which he continues to do today. But you can call him once to talk about it, what is the plan to your students at environment sciences. So we want healthy and smart city. This smart city concept I have never liked. What do you mean by smart city? And smart city is not just by beautifying, breaking footpaths and making something. This is not smart cities where healthy people live. Simple definition for me is I don't know if you have seen that in your library also there may be a book which Gunal and myself have on Agenda 21, old book published in 2000, but you will find a full chapter on healthy city. This is the last part. I'll wind up now. But this report you should read if you really want to qualify to be a graduate in health sciences or environmental sciences. You must read this report, irrespective of your examination papers and your marks and your grades. If you want to become a sensitive graduate, you should read this report. What is happening? This is something which is in the preface written by Professor Jacqueline MacLeod, who is Executive Director of European Environmental Agency. Look at what she is writing. There is something profoundly wrong with the way we are living today. There are corrosive pathologies of inequality all around us, be they access to safe environment, healthcare, education, or clean water. These are reinforced by short-term political actions and socially divisive language based on adulation of wealth. A progressive response will require not only greater knowledge about the state of the planet and its resources, but also an awareness that many aspects will remain unknown. This is important. Many aspects will remain unknown. Although there is information explosion, the right information is still missing. We will need more ethical form of public decision making based on a language which our moral instincts and concerns can be expressed. These are the overall aims of volume 2, Late Lessons, Early Warning. You should read both. There are two volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. Excellent reports. And these reports are produced by top-notch scientists, including Nobel laureate great scientists. So these are not, again, only passionate people talking about. Again, look at this. There has been massive break of trust. Trust in the financial system, trust in bankers, trust in business, and trust in business leaders, trust in politicians, trust in media, trust in whole process of globalization. When I say trust, it's mistrust. All have been severely damaged in rich countries and poor countries alike. This is again Stephen Green in 2009. These are some of the tables. This table shows you that how tobacco industries strategically manipulated research, and same thing is happening in pharmaceutical industries also. There is the evidence to show that the industry-sponsored research results go in their favor of sponsors. There is a great deal of bias that happens, and same thing happened during tobacco. Banning tobacco or smoking at public place took so much of time when early warnings were given. Same thing happened. Banning leaded petrol took so much of time to ban, so much of time when early warning was given almost 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So all these cases are there in this book, Late Lessons for Vulnerable, when they are saying that scientists had given warning, but scientists only prevented those warnings to be adopted. And so at the end, they have asked this question, that for whom scientists are working. Are they working for people or are they working for industry or business? This is the question which all of us should ask ourselves. This is just how these are all from that report, so I'm not going to talk about. This is again my hero. And I will end by quoting from Panchatantra, again my favorite book. Simple stories and moral at the end. You know. Those who have not heard or read Panchatantra, I would recommend that you read them. You know, is a relationship between nature and human. These stories are about that. And one of the quotes from that I will end: by cutting trees and by creating mud of blood, if one aspires to get heaven, what could be the ways to go to hell? Okay. If you have any questions, we can take them. Huh? Yeah, yeah. It's open. If they have. Actually, asking questions, we should also train our students, because somehow our students hesitate asking questions. Remember, no question is a stupid question. And yes.
So one question, just at the end, you mentioned some report, which shows that political systems, are doing the implementation. And apart from that, we also said that it takes time for it to get implemented. What message does it give us who are wanting to enter into environment, working in environment practice? Because this generation is very fast. They want results very fast. So what do we expect from us?
As a students, I would say that they should use their time to gather not only information, but also try to get insights in what is happening around you. And you should learn that you should not take everything on the face value. Otherwise, there is no difference between you and a common man. You are an educated person, so you should ask questions. You should challenge. You know, and through informed decision making, evidence-based informed decision making, if our political systems start getting decision making, then there is a hope. Today it is not, because we are in minority. So you should really continue to make your point boldly. You should continue to write, debate, discuss, question, inquire. So these are the qualities which both health and environmental students especially, because ultimately these are the two factors, which will decide the well-being of the country or the humanity. And the counters, you will find that they will be much more empowered, resourceful, but still we should believe that power of one. If you are right, your conviction is right, you are able to make change. Like in Pune, we could make that change, and therefore you see those hills today with trees on them. Otherwise, on all hills, it would have been like Malabar Hill in Mumbai. All hills would have been destroyed. But the whole Pune community stood for the cause. So it happened. And it happened because of very few people, very few selected people committedly stood firmly. And I still remember I was part of that Pune Development Plan Committee, which is supposed to, and one of our recommendation is Pune Biodiversity Park. We pleaded that there should be a biodiversity park on the hill and no construction should be allowed on the hill. Earlier, there was huge opposition from the political side. At that time, Suresh Kalmadi was in power, and we engaged with him. We told him, see, political people are also not bad people if you really tell them properly. And that is what our student and teacher job is. So we engaged with them, we told them, they changed. Overnight they changed. And finally signing happened on that. All corporators came on the terrace of Anita Bellinger. She was also member of the committee. So we all were sitting in her terrace Corporators came there and signed, and the whole Pune picture was changed that day. So it happens. So ultimately, the knowledge power is supreme. You have to gain that power. Political power is secondary. But today, because knowledge power is weak, political power has become superior. So more and more informed citizens and more students like you, they go out and they spread this, things will change. So it's a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight because there are deep-rooted commercial interests. And when it comes to commercial interest, it is very difficult to counter. There are many good movies about it. Another good movie is Mrs. Bokovic. Another very good movie. She single-handedly stands against the pollution that is happening. And yeah, our outbreak is for this spread, but for environment protection also there are some very good movies. I also used to show the film here, the film by who is that vice president? Al Gore. Al Gore's film is also very good film. Before my lecture, I used to show that film at every class. Yes. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It was an excellent lecture. I had one question, sir. While we now understand the importance of social determinants of health, according to you, do you think that SDH has been appropriately addressed in the National Health Policy 2017? While there is a chapter on integrating or mainstreaming of Ayush into this first time, while the government does have programs to address some of the important social, like for example, the Jal Se Jal scheme or the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, ODF, and all that which is happening. What do you think is there in the national health policy, or do you think something more needs to be done to ensure that it actually comes into this and students are regularly taught about the importance of social duty?
Yeah, I think in this regime, I find a very big policy change coming up. Very big policy change for good. For the first time, I am seeing that. Not only in health, but also in environment, it is coming up very, very strongly. And the focus, for example, on toilets, the focus on water, these are the core issues. And where now, but our country is so large that it takes time. But who would otherwise would have talked about simple thing like cleanliness? For the first time, this discussion started in public debate. And Prime Minister talking about importance of that gave a big message. So you will find that today around us, if you compare 10 years back, the cleanliness definitely awareness has increased. The people spitting on road has decreased. They still continue, but that awareness has come. People will challenge if somebody do that on the road. They don't hesitate. Earlier, they might not have done that. So these are the mindset changes which are happening. And the policies, especially health policy also, I find the focus is coming back on prevention, although slowly. What happened is our entire culture is based on prevention. Prevention and minimal use of resources. That's our culture. But the Western culture, what we adopted, it went into wastage. Our original culture, for example, was saving, but we were pushed in spending culture. So it's a big thing, and it is not something which is as simple as we can talk more freely, because there are geopolitical concerns. And these are very serious. As students, you should be able to go deep to know what is happening. And you don't need teachers only to do that. This can happen one-on-one. This may not happen in a class. This happens one-on-one. You yourself should be able to find out what is happening. Who is creating these narratives? And identifying the narratives and coming out, countering it is our responsibility. Like this narrative of, there are several narratives which are actually against. It could be a narrative of metro, which is one example, which has gone out of our hands now. We can't do that. So now we have to support metro, because if it not gets complete, it will be more disaster. But or narratives in health, like the narratives were given to such a extent that if you look at Bhor committee, for example, which is a classic committee, so smartly they bypassed our own culture in the whole committee. And today, if you look at 10 different reports up to National Health Policy 2017, you will find that even today, only one report dominates all 20 reports, is Bhor committee. So we have not been able to eradicate that even now. What Bhor committee prevented integration and use of our own knowledge systems, today also we are continuing with the same. And even today, our new generation, what I would like to call them as grandchildren of Macaulay, we are carrying the, see the dominance of English. We think that somebody who is speaking English is a great knowledgeable person. What a myth it is. What do you mean by somebody comes in tie and suit is a great person? Knowledge has nothing to do with your language. And so we welcomed this idea of teaching engineering and medicine in Hindi. And people challenged us at that time in Delhi also. Do you know that and this is what students should do actually, and you don't do that. You only focus on your curriculum, your exam, that is important. But as students, this is the last chance for you to widen your horizons. This is your last chance to do that as students. Because once you are in the market, market is ruthless. You won't get time also.
Particularly, of course, currently looking at the scenario more and on building a smarter city. But are there any initiatives or
I don't know, means that you will have to really find out. I can't give that answer. It is individual observation and individual conclusion. So first of all, I don't know what is smart city. And, yeah, it's in a city. City doesn't become. And is it a smart city? Really? We look at that smartness on our own road. So, and healthy city meaning unless your health indicators improve in our own city, how that can happen? I mean, if you have a population living in your own city with no access to safe drinking water, what kind of healthy city we are in? And if we don't have sufficient toilets and sufficient waste disposal system, what kind of, but as compared to many other cities, I will tell you that we are blessed by a better city. It may not be a smart city, it may not be healthy city, but it is definitely comparatively better city. And it is because of the citizens, it is not because of anything else, but it is mainly because of citizens that we are in. Yes.
Sir, in one of the slides was mentioned that in USA the third leading cause of death is COVID-19. But sir, if we go by the current scenario, it is said that we should focus more on developing in underdeveloped countries. But if we go with the example of USA, so according to you, what should be our priority? Should be the developing country, underdeveloped country, or the developed countries like US?
No, actually, our definition of development itself is problematic. So our idea of the development is a big building, big road, big cars. That is not development. So I would say that third leading cause in US, why I took that, because it is a rich developed country. That is our aspirational country. So the lesson is, do you want to really make them aspirational? Do you want to really aspire them to go and become third largest cause of death there? No? And you won't know. I did not tell you that. This is published data again. I think I told this to health sciences students. Published in British Medical Journal, followed by JAMA. JAMA is Journal of American Medical Association. 2021 data of cause of deaths. First cause of death is correct. Second cause of death is cancer. Third cause of death in 2015 was medical errors. Medical errors. So Dr. Mutadkar used to tell us Ivan Illich book, medical nemesis, and the first sentence in that book is, hospital is the greatest enemy of the society. And actually I have countered one of the ministers also, because now I keep on meeting governors and ministers every other day. Our education minister came to my home, Aarti, 3 days ago for dinner. Girish was there to help me. Yeah. So I had told them. So he was boasting about his own state. I'll not name state, and but that our state has done fantastic job and we are doing excellent work in health. And during last 5 years, we have added so many number of beds and so many hospitals we have corrected. We are getting a new aims. I said, this is all ill health indicators you are taking. So that means your health of your state is in not good shape. The indicator of health, when you will tell you that we have closed down these hospitals, we have converted them more in wellness centers where gyms and not only gyms but yoga and all other healthy things will happen. That is the indicator. So by increasing number of beds, how you will increase health? That you are increasing diseases there. That's not something. So this is a narrative. The narratives, what I am telling you, these are the narratives which are put in our mind, like language. 16 countries, Angeline, 16 countries, top countries, teach their medicine in their own language. So knowledge or English has nothing to do. So our people started raising questions, what will happen to our graduates if they study in Hindi? They will not have global careers and all that. I said, Japan, Germany, France, all of them, they teach in their own language. Medicine courses, China, Korea. So what on earth will be happening if they learn in Hindi? So it is not about language. It is about how medical skills that person is able to acquire. And not just because you are speaking in English, they will be able to acquire those skills.
As you said that one person can make it, but as students we tend to think that like until we are in place of authority, we cannot make a change. So what are the steps or measures we can take? Thank you.
No, this is one person change, meaning you cannot be able to do immediate change. This is a consistent effort of one person that brings the change. So wherever you go, and you need not be an authority, you can challenge authority today. If you have the knowledge power, you can challenge authority based on your own report, based on your own presentations, based on your own knowledge. You can influence people. But today that, and I'll not give examples of others as one person, like that Greta, means I don't know who made her Greta. And that is also a form of narrative. But suddenly one girl from some country becomes a icon of environmental protection. This doesn't happen. These are all planned. So as students, you should be able to identify fake news and real news. These are all fake created news. Overnight, nobody becomes such a hero, environmental hero. It requires a real hard work and conviction, and for doing that, you have to suffer also. You have to go through a great difficult times. So, Mrs. Brokovich, you can see that movie, how that girl alone. Who is that? Julia Roberts, I think. That she has acted in it. Julia Roberts movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Since several years we witnessed your area. We talked about there are multiple dimensions. One of that is environment. We talked about environment and health. Can you throw some light on how education pedagogy can be helping increasing the environmental awareness?
Yeah, again, education pedagogy, what education we are doing today is following the British pattern of education, which is giving you information and making you good in English, because at that time the need was people should work in East India Company. That was the need at that time. That's why English came in. They wanted Indians to learn English to work under them. That was the need for that. Today it is not so. Today education and we think, and teachers have monopolized education. So I would blame us. And education happens everywhere. We don't consider that at all. And I give this example, and during our discussions on this new policy also, we have made this point that education happens at home, education happens in society. So we should consider that, maybe means for example, a girl student taking a Bharatnatyam. I don't know, many of you also must have done that. Arangetram. Arangetram is such a tough examination, much tougher than our own examination happens in the university. No? But do we give any credit to them? No. So it is academic part, no? So why we consider that what we do inside our classroom is only academic and others are extracurricular or co-curricular? So in the new policy, all this is going to get broken down. So even Arangetram credits will come as academic credits. If that graduate is not able to really make a distinction between fake and real news, or if that graduate is not able to appreciate beauty, what kind of graduate are you? So this comes under educatedness, irrespective of faculty. You may be medical student, you may be engineering student, but if you are studying here, you must know your culture, you know your society, you must know the citizenry. So all that today is not missing because our system, education system is still trapped in that mindset. So we go by only whatever is given in the syllabus, whatever so we will tell you, we will give you marks if you write which we have to. We don't allow you to think. You are not allowed to think. And the purpose of education is to let students think. Inquiry, investigation, these are the basics of education. So our system, and this cannot change. I'm not saying this system is wrong, because through this system only we have come out. But this system needs to change.
And this system needs to look out of thing to make students more critical thinkers, cognitive abilities, high order cognition, not low order cognition. That is the requirement of education. And I think that happens through co-learning. Because students learn from each other, not only from teachers also. Teachers learn from students. I learn from students. Whenever I learn, Akash has taught me many things. Girish has taught me many things. And even today I learn from. So this is a co-learning exercise. That's what we have to understand inside the campus. And once that happens, then education or learning becomes a joy. So unless we convert this whole process into an enjoyable process, it will not happen. If it becomes a mechanical process just to get marks and grades in the examination, you will become robot and get out of it and remain robot all your life. Okay. So engineering was coming here to close.
So I was taking pictures, so it's okay. There are no more questions. I will just summarize correctly.
Yes.
So the three lessons that I have learned today sitting here is that history teaches us a lot. We must learn from the history. So all the records that were shown of previous outbreaks and epidemics have given us some lessons. So the late lessons, but early warning signs. I like that report very much. The second lesson is interdisciplinarity. We talked about infectious disease, environment, epidemiology, social determinants coming together. So I thought interdisciplinarity, maintaining that as an approach to solving any problem would be very important. And third thing is citizen engagement, public engagement in solving the issue. And especially with the environment issue, I believe the examples that you gave us talked about involvement of people. You as an individual or as a group, as a community, will definitely bring in some change. So let's not wait for the policymakers to have rules and regulations, but we may begin from ourselves in a very little way. And I think that's the summary of
very well summed up, Aarti. What we will do, Akash, we can ask somebody from office to come here. We will stand in this row. You remain seated, and somebody should take a photograph like here, from here. Sure. Okay. Or somebody. We will do that. Aarti and all, we can just stand here in between. Okay. And let students be there. Backside students, you can move also little forward. That is fine.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.